Hey, what's up guys? I'm BTC. If you've been following the Overwatch World Cup, you know that South Korea is on fire. They've been absolutely destroying all of the other teams. And the thing is, they're not even using the current meta to do it. Just this last weekend, we had the latest in the group stages for the Overwatch World Cup, and I'm probably going to mispronounce this. I think it was the Katowice group stages. Anyways, it was Group E, which consisted of South Korea, Netherlands, Poland, Austria, and then Group F, which was Canada, Russia, Singapore, and Turkey. Now, while Canada did very good, they still had some kind of close matches. But on the other end, in Group E, South Korea just absolutely dominated everyone. Like, none of their matches were even close. And the thing about it is, they didn't actually even use the current meta. They didn't use the dive meta or anything like that. They used some really off-meta, generally considered bad characters, and they still just completely crushed their opponents. So that's what I want to talk about today, and I want to emphasize something here. So I want to be very, very crystal clear about this. I'm going to talk about, the meta, but it's going to be at the pro level of the game. This does not apply to anything in the competitive ladder for, the average player, right? This is pro level only. So the question is, did South Korea just break the meta in pro Overwatch? Short answer is no. Long answer, it's a little bit more complicated. You see, the thing is, South Korea is so much better than the other teams. You really can't use this as any sort of a determining factor on whether or not these other characters are really, that viable. Because the fact of the matter is, if you were to take a Grandmaster player and put him up against, let's say, a silver or a gold rank, the Grandmaster can play anything he wants, and he's still going to absolutely destroy, the silver or the gold rank player. It's just not going to be close. He can do anything he wants. He can goof around with a Battle Mercy and still win. And this is kind of what South Korea was doing. And see, that's kind of the thing. On the competitive ladder, there's a rank structure that tells us where someone generally is as far as skill level. We know that a diamond player is going to outperform that gold rank player. We know that the Grandmaster is going to outperform that diamond player. But when it comes to the pro level, there really isn't that sort of thing there. I mean, once you have enough established tournaments, year after year, you can kind of get the feeling okay, these are top tier teams and these are, middle tier teams and then these are kind of the bottom tier teams. But for Overwatch, we don't really have that quite yet. Now, in football, an avid football player knows that the New England Patriots is going to be way better than the Cleveland Browns. There's just no comparison there. But in Overwatch, we don't really have that. And that leads to people having the tendency to think that all of the Overwatch teams at the pro level, all the teams are generally kind of equal, and that's just not the case, as South Korea is very clearly demonstrating in the World Cup. The South Korean team is so far ahead and so above all of the other teams, it's not even funny. Now, it's not to say that the other teams have bad players, because they have extremely good players, but they're still getting absolutely destroyed by South Korea. And the thing is, let me give you an example of the just sheer dominance of South Korea. Whenever they were on the attack of a payload map, they never failed to get it all the way to the end. If they went first in an assault 2 capture point map, they never failed to get both of the points. During any of the King of the Hill maps, they got every single round, every single time. And on defense, the South Korean team was so completely dominant that they only ever gave up 2 capture points the entire weekend. The first one was against Poland, which was the first capture point on Horizon Lunar Colony, and then the second time they lost the capture point was against Russia, and that was the first capture point on Volskaya. But when the match flipped over and it was South Korea's turn to attack, they just steamrolled right through and won the entire match easily. I mean, it wasn't even close. So watching these matches, the magnitude of the skill difference between South Korea and all the other teams is just insanely large, and the other teams just never had a chance at all. So keep that in mind. Now, during the course of South Korea's rampage through the other teams, they didn't even really use what's considered meta. I think once or twice they might have had a dive comp, but for the most part they were falling back to some of the traditional characters, Reinhardt and Zarya and Ana, and they were using that. And then one player in particular on the South Korean team, I mean, he was half-jokingly accused of trolling because of some of the picks he was using. So Flower is a DPS flex player, and he used some of the things you would expect him to use, like Genji and Pharah and even Reaper, and sometimes Sombra, because it's so strong on the Assault to Capture Point maps. But he also used some stuff that was just like out of this world. Like, he was using a lot of Junkrat. He was also using Torbjorn. He was using Orisa. I think he was even on Hanzo for a little bit. But the guy can play almost any character. And if you look at some of the other really top-level DPS players in the world, they're extremely good, but they're also very specialized. They're really, really good at just Genji, or they're really, really good at pretty much only Tracer. And if you try to move them over to another character, they're not quite as good as they should be. But this Flower player, he's just amazing at pretty much anything he plays. But it's definitely not just him either. The rest of the South Korean team is just unbelievably amazing. And this is why I said, like, did they break the meta? The short answer is no. The long answer is, like I said, it's complicated, but the fact is the South Korean team is so good and so much better than everyone else that they can be that Grandmaster playing against the gold rank player. They can use pretty much anything they want and still win. So the next question is, could South Korea continue to use these kind of odd picks like Junkrat if they were playing against a team that was actually on their skill level? I don't know. They might not be able to. Really, we're going to have to wait until BlizzCon and see how South Korea does against some of these other group stage winners. But, I mean, if what's going on over this last weekend is any indication, there's a really good chance that none of these other teams are even going to be able to hold a candle to South Korea, and South Korea is just going to continue their rampage, and it might be a while before we actually have another team that is at the level that South Korea is playing right now. So for you guys watching South Korea absolutely destroy everyone this weekend, let me know down in the comments section below. Also, don't forget to check out my Discord server, where you can join the community and find other players to group with. The link for that is in the description. Thanks for watching. Hit that like button. Remember, always blame the controller, because it's never your fault. Also, special thanks to all my Patreon supporters for helping to make this all possible. If you'd like to see what kind of cool rewards you can get for supporting the channel, check the links on screen and down below.